Hey everyone, Jefferson Graham, photo walking with Chris Smith you'll never guess, he's out of Chicago, he's in Chicago. Chris runs the Out of Chicago Photography Conference, but today we're talking about taking pictures in Chicago. Hey Chris.
Hi Jefferson, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Let's just start off by talking about Chicago. I've been there a few times, and the first thing that comes to mind is pizza, deep dish pizza, which doesn't make for a great photograph. But just talk to people about the joy of photographing Chicago, probably not in January, but later on in the year.
Yeah, well, throughout the whole year. I mean, I love going in the winter as well. I mean, things have been a little crazy the last 12 months during COVID, but Chicago's great any time of the year. My favorite thing about shooting Chicago is the buildings. That's my thing, whether it's a big, wide cityscape from a couple of great locations or just going right down into the loop and just looking straight up and seeing those huge, tall buildings and doing more of an abstract architecture. So that's my favorite part about photographing Chicago, but it's great for street photography as well, especially if you like to do, say, street photography blended into the architecture. Then it's kind of like the place to be. People come here for street photography and they're like, I was expecting hundreds and hundreds of people on the street like New York City, and it's not like that. But if you're looking for 2 or 3 people with a really, really interesting background behind them, an interesting building and textures, Chicago is a great place to get that type of shot.
Okay, so there's a lot of big cities in the Midwest. What, besides wind, what makes Chicago stand out as a photography place to go visit?
Yeah, I mean, I think I mean, there's places like Dubai and maybe a couple other cities in the world, but Chicago, I mean, other cities in the Midwest are great. And I'm originally from the Detroit area, and that's really fun as well. But Chicago is probably the greatest city in the world for modern architecture. I don't mean just like the last 20 years, but like the last, since like the 50s, 60s, like the original skyscrapers. It's some of the best buildings to photograph, and some of them that are in the last 10, 20 years, some really good, fun new buildings that have gone up that are fun to shoot. So I think that if you're looking at architecture, it's one of the best places in the world. If you look at these photographers that lead their architecture workshops and go places, they're going to New York City, they're going to Chicago, they're going to Dubai, maybe Toronto, but it's like a list of Paris. It's like a list of like 6 or 7 places in the world, and Chicago is one of them. When's
the best time to come there photographically?
Photographically, the best time. Gosh, I mean, summer's wonderful because temperature's much better. But I've gotten some great photos in the winter. So anytime throughout the year is going to work if you're coming to shoot architecture, if you're coming to shoot the abstract things, except that in the winter it does get very, very cold, and you just got to fight that a little bit. But in the summer, you're going to be fighting the crowds a little bit more. And that can be one of the big things that you're trying to avoid when you're in Chicago, is how do you keep people out of your frame if you're looking to do that type of a shot. So
get there early, I guess, right?
Yeah, so places like Millennium Park, where you're photographing the bean, Cloud Gate, the big reflective bean. If you're photographing that, if you get there right when the park opens, and now for that one, that would be go like in the summer. Well, what am I trying to say? Go more like in the fall. So when it opens, no one's there that early in the morning at like 6 in the morning, and that's when you can get those shots. And people go, "Wow, you must have done a ton of Photoshops." Like, no, I woke up really early. So you're exactly right.
Let's do a photo walk for people in Chicago. Do we start downtown? Do we do the loop? Where should we start?
Oh, man. So we've run 6, 7 conferences downtown where we send people in all directions. And I've run, 30 plus photo walks in the city. And there's a few that are my favorites. But the place that their favorite thing is to start in like Millennium Park, and actually around that bean. That's a great place to gather. If you're meeting friends that are in Chicago or from out of town, say, hey, let's meet at the bean, meet on the benches, just, outside of it. And that's a great place to start but from there, you're going to see the whole skyline, and you could choose to walk over to Adler Planetarium. And that's the classics place to get the wide, the whole city skyline. And actually on the way, you'll also pass Buckingham Fountain in Grant Park. So you get the fountain. This is like you go to Millennium Park, At sunset, you get some blue hour, you go to the fountain while it's mostly dark and it's just the end of twilight, and then you go out to Adler Planetarium when it's night and you see all the lights of the city. So that's kind of one of them. Another one is to go start at Millennium Park and then walk through the loop and do that where you just start to see the buildings and you're looking straight up. And that's some of my favorites, is just a wide angle lens straight up. You just turn your camera a tiny bit and it makes a huge difference in how those shots look. Turn them black and white and you've got something people are going, oh my goodness, how'd you do that? And it's like, well, it wasn't really that hard. So that's another area. Or North Avenue Beach is if you're going to go to the other side of Chicago, go north of Chicago and look, you're in Chicago, but north of the big buildings and looking back, that's an even better place, I think, than Adler Planetarium, because Adler Planetarium, you're so far away. You could walk like half a mile down the lake shore and it's still the exact same skyline shot. But when you're at North Avenue Beach, you can walk a quarter mile and it's totally different. And so you get totally different angles because you're closer to the buildings. So those are the two main places to do the skyline.
Okay, that's the Skyline. Riverwalk, I understand, it's very popular too.
Absolutely. So that's one of them that we would do, is start at Millennium Park, and it's just a block or two from the Riverwalk, and then you go to the river, and you're going to go right along there. You're going to see like the Marina Towers. It's the two corncob towers that you might think of when you think of Chicago are right there, and all along the river. You're going to see great stuff. Lots of new buildings along the river as well. So if you're into modern architecture, like that's kind of the way to go.
Okay, so going the other direction, the Chicago Theater. I say a lot of people have taken a great shot of the Chicago Theater, right?
Yeah,
which is what, 100 years old or something like that?
Yeah, Chicago Theater is awesome. Chicago Theater is right on State Street, so you could make that part of your photo walk where you start at Millennium Park, you go over, just to State Street. It's not far, and you get that shot in front of the Chicago Theater, and then you could go over to the Riverwalk. What I prefer to do, though, is start at Millennium Park just at sunset, then go down the Riverwalk as it's twilight, and then come back to shoot the Chicago Theater, because it still looks good because there's so much light along State Street. It still looks good even when it's completely dark. So you can come back at 10 o'clock or whatever. Well, actually, they turn the marquee off like around 10 or so you don't want to miss that. But get there, and then there's so many good bars and restaurants around there when they're open to finish your night.
The Sears Tower, the Wrigley building.
So Sears Tower, obviously, one of the tallest buildings, and it's great. It's one of those that's really fun, just the way the structure is built to go beneath it and look straight up. You can take the time to go up to the top of it, and that's a lot of fun. But I prefer to do like the Hancock building. If I'm going to go up to the top of one of them, they've got the great 360 views in all different directions. Every way you look, out over the lake or back over the city, it's beautiful views. And the best part about being in the Hancock building is you get the Sears Tower in your photo then. So to be in the Hancock building is kind of the place for me to get those great high up shots. And they're not difficult to do. And that's a great place to go in the evening when the sun's setting as well. And the Wrigley building, as you mentioned, if you do that Millennium Park to the Riverwalk, when you get to the river, the first thing you're going to see is a Wrigley building right there. And so that's a great old shot too. Mm-hmm.
Now you've got a zoom background of Chicago, the skyline behind you. I'd like to ask if you have any idea what we're looking at or where it was taken.
So this is from south of Chicago. This is from the 18th Street Bridge. This is another great place to shoot from. You're gonna park near that 18th Street Bridge. There's a park there. You can walk to the bridge and you can look out over the train yards here. You can walk not quite as far as I went here, and you're looking over the river back towards Chicago. So the great part about shooting from here, of course, is you're getting the buildings of Chicago, but you've got that, the leading lines, and you've got great foreground if you're going to be photographing. So from 18th Street Bridge, south of Chicago.
Talk to me about living in Chicago. You're from Detroit, but you made a decision to go to Chicago. So tell everybody why and what it's like to live there.
Oh, you want to hear my life story? All right. Well, you're going to be disappointed because I moved here. My wife is from here. I don't live in Chicago. I live north of Chicago in the suburbs, and I do love it here. But to me, that's one of the beauties of being a photographer anywhere in this area is that so many people live in Chicago and they're walking to and from work every day and getting on the L. We didn't even talk about the L for photography, but they're doing all of that, and they just take it for granted. But for me, coming from the suburbs and I get to Chicago, it's like, oh, this is amazing, So every time I get there, it's, you get an excitement, and the feeling when you get to a place and there's going to be good photographs to be made and your heart starts beating. And that's how I feel every time I get down into Chicago.
I shot a double rainbow last Friday, and
So
my heart was beating. And I looked over and I said, "Oh my God, it's going to be gone before I get there." But luckily, it wasn't. And
that's awesome.
So that was pretty cool.
You got the shot.
I got the shot, and someone just bought 2 prints this morning, so that's even better.
Even better.
Yeah, I made money on it. Tell me about photographing the L.
Yeah, of course. How could we not talk about the elevated train in Chicago, right? So down in the loop and going out into the suburbs, but really down in the loop around right where like the Chicago Theater is a great place to get on. You can get on the L, you can loop around, you can get right back on as long as you don't get off the platform. And there's so many great locations that you can shoot from the L. Oh my goodness. You can cut this part out, but this is one thing that I didn't say the whole time, is that if you want to know about any of these places, I wrote an amazing, I think, ebook. It's The Photographer's Guide to Chicago, and it's got every one of these locations listed in there. So it tells you exactly where to go, when to go, and gives some tips for getting the best shots there. So, yeah.
Okay. One important thing to add to that. How do they get it?
I don't even know. Oh my goodness. It is available on the Photographer's Guide to Chicago is available on Amazon if you search for it. But we also have, and I will make sure we get a better link to it on Out of Chicago. You can get actually the updated version and download it for free. We sold it forever on Amazon, but we've decided to make it free to anyone that is on our email list at Out of Chicago. So go to outofchicago.com. You can download the Photographer's Guide to Chicago for free. And it's got like over 100 5-star reviews on Amazon. People really loved it. And you can get it for free at outofchicago.com.
What about living you don't live in Chicago, you live near Chicago, but what about living in the area? What's that like?
Oh, I mean, Chicago's, like I said, just one of the greatest cities in the world. I mean, you've got access to everything. We've been doing our conferences now all over the country, and we've been doing some even internationally a little bit. And we've been scouting some other areas internationally. And so the fact that I live like 15 minutes from O'Hare, it's like, oh, this is great. So you've got great schools, you've got great hospitals, you've got great, infrastructure, easily get downtown, take the train, easily go from O'Hare anywhere in the world. So
yeah, I'm thinking we haven't seen Chicago like we used to in the John Hughes movies, right? Because they
right.
all were done in Chicago. Home Alone and Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and you name it.
Yep, we just watched both of those with my kids over the holidays. So yeah, so yeah, it's kind of crazy.
Tell everybody about Out of Chicago.
So Out of Chicago started as my blog, where it was just me photographing Chicago, writing about the different places that I like to photograph. This was like 10, 11, 12 years ago, where it was more like, you didn't see this everywhere you went. And so that was the beginning of Out of Chicago. And then I think in 2014, I said, let's do a get together downtown where we have some of my other favorite photographers that are on Flickr, Facebook. At the time it was Flickr, that was really big. And we said, let's get them together and they can teach some classes and lead people on photo walks. And that was the very first Out of Chicago conference. And when I mentioned it to some other people, they were like, oh, well, how about we get like Canon and Panasonic and all these other companies involved? I'm like, well, this is just like our friends getting together. But all of a sudden, all these companies wanted to be a part of it. And it grew from like 150 people to 400 to eventually like 500 people. And we had some great keynote speakers like Rick Salmon and Art Wolf, Scott Kelby, and some of the great photographers working with us here in Chicago. But eventually we would bring in these amazing landscape photographers and they'd go, well, where do I go shoot my landscapes? Or we'd bring in people that are all about flower photography, but we're in this conference center. So we've started to branch out now where our conferences are in the location where you'd want to shoot. So we do an entire conference at the Chicago Botanic Garden. This year we're going to Acadia National Park and we're going to Death Valley National Park. And we bring the instructors that know that area better than anyone and are just amazing photographers and amazing teachers. You get to go out and shoot with them in the field. And it's just like, it's like the experience that I would have always wanted to do as a photographer. And I'm just trying to build that for other people. And it's been really fun. And I was teaching high school for almost 20 years. And now I just do this.
Now we're doing this talk during the pandemic where you're not meeting people in person, but you're about to do in April, I believe. It's a virtual conference. Why don't you tell everybody about that?
That's right. So I told you we did this out of Chicago conference. We did it from like 2014 to 2019. And last year we were thinking, because of this whole, we're doing these things all over the place, we're not sure we want to do that same thing downtown Chicago again. So we were already thinking we might do it online. Then the pandemic hit, and within a month, we went from maybe we should do it to having it all set up and running the whole event. So last April, we did it for the first time. We had a great turnout from people. We had 70 instructors. We had over 150 sessions. And so it was all online. And all the people that would come to our old things, they came and they're like, you know what? I love coming to Chicago and photographing Chicago. It is great, but I love the way you're doing it now. So they were so excited to be able to do this online because you didn't have to pay for airfare and to do all of that stuff to be part of it. And so, yeah, it was a great event. We're doing it again this year. We're going to have 50 plus instructors. We're still figuring out some of our last ones, but we're going to have a ton of instructors, tons of sessions, and it's going to be very interactive. It's not just like watching a bunch of videos. You're going to have there's going to be panel discussions. People are going to get involved. Just like we're in a meeting right now, we'll bring other people in. Hey, how's it going? You're going to have image reviews. They'll get to share their images, do some competitions. So all sorts of really, really fun stuff around that weekend. I just consider it all of our people and all the best photographers all getting together in one place for one weekend. So it's April 9th through the 11th. You just go to outofchicago.com to learn more.
And what does it cost to attend?
The cost is $300, and that includes all of the sessions, but it also includes access to every single session for the next 12 months. And so people are constantly emailing me over these last 12 months like, oh man, I never watched this one, but it was amazing. I just watched it just a couple weeks ago or whatever. So so you have access to those. Like I said, it's going to be like 100 plus sessions, all these presentations and everything else. You'll have access to it forever. There's also a whole community where you can post your stuff, get feedback. All of that is included in that price.
Okay, Chris Smith, out of Chicago.com, right?
That's right.
All right, Chris, thanks for filling us in on Chicago. I can't wait to come visit.
Yeah, can't wait when you're here, let me know for sure.
All righty.